Welcome everyone. It's so good to have you with us today. We do have a little bit of a smaller audience because we didn't get the emails out. We had a little technical difficulties, but that's okay. We are recording today, and so I have a great topic on hand for you with Ben Wardell and John Sayer as our presenters today. We're actually going to be talking about Project Explorer, so I'm really excited for you to learn about this. If you've seen the announcement, it just launched today with Civil 3D, so a very timely topic. And while we are waiting for everyone to join and get their audio connected, I would love to hear where you are joining us from. So if you could open up your question and answer panel and just type in the question panel where you're joining from so that we can get to know a little bit about you and the audience that's with us. Javier is from Dallas. Nice to have you. Roxanne from Colorado. Vivek from Dubai. Nice to have you. Jordan from Iowa. And Michelle from Maryland. Nice to have another Michelle on. In fact, Michelle Hood is actually going to probably be speaking at our AU meetup. So awesome to have you on with us. Michael from Arlington, Virginia. Nice to have you. Kelly from Olympia, Washington, Jim from Nevada, Ryan from Washington, Steve also from Washington, Mary from Ontario, Brian from Arizona, Christian from the Netherlands, nice to have you. It's got to be pretty late your time. Renee from Ontario, Matthew from Iowa, Cameron from New York, Luke from Pittsburgh, Harold from Oshawa, Brian from Seattle, Tom from Florida, Renee from Canada, Melvin from Virginia, Ken from Winnipeg. It's nice to have all of you on today. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. So good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you are in. And like I said, today we are going to be talking a bit about Project Explorer that just launched today with Civil 3D, the newest release of Civil 3D. I do have Ben Wardell and John Sayer here to join us to talk a little bit about it. So what is Project Explorer? They're going to go into that, but you probably saw this release with the 2021.1 release of the infrastructure products. It introduced Project Explorer on top of Civil 3D, and you're going to learn a lot about that today. So hopefully we've got a lot of Civil 3D users on board, and it looks like we are leveling off. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly go through some orders of business and then turn the presentation over to John and Ben. So just quickly, our safe harbor statement, we are talking about a product that just launched, but just in case we make any forward-facing statements, please do not make buying decisions based on those statements. Most everything that we're talking about today shouldn't be a problem though, because like I said, it just launched. So very excited to be able to do that. Now, our lines are muted just to reduce the background noise. If you would like to ask questions, I highly encourage them. As you know, if you've been to these before, we do encourage questions. Go ahead and type those questions in the Q&A panel, or if you're brave enough, go ahead and raise your hand in that audience panel so that we can unmute your line and allow you to ask your question live. So. The recording of this session will be sent out to everyone who registered, and so you'll be looking for that in your email afterwards. Before we jump in though, I do want to bring up Autodesk University. As you all know, that if you've been coming regularly, we are going to go ahead and hold our regularly scheduled meetup in conjunction with Autodesk University. So Autodesk University is going to be happening in November, I believe 17th through the 20th. And we're going to switch things up a little bit, make it a little bit more interactive. So we're going to do lightning talks. So what does that mean? It's going to be a 5-minute talk with a 5-minute Q&A. And all of you have been submitting your suggestions. through email. And so these are the suggestions that came up. And what I would like to do is let you read through those to decide what topics you are most interested in seeing at AU so that we can then vote on them. So teamwork makes the dream work. That's all about starting a user group from scratch. User groups within your company are really great to help each other gain more knowledge on how to make the product work for you instead of you working for the product. So it's a great way to get everyone's knowledge up to the level you need to be more productive. Living up to certain standards, it's all about the need for standards and holding those standards so that everything you create within your company comes out looking like one company created it, not multiple companies coming from all different places. Don't be a cowboy or cowgirl is all about developing those standards for a multidisciplinary engineering environment. So, kind of going back to the standards a little bit. And the organized chaos is all about changes of a multidisciplinary client-driven environment. So, oops, I think I forgot to add a enter here. This next one is a balancing act, how to have standards that aren't too rigid. So that is another one, and I am not 100% sure that's going to come up very well in the poll because there were only 5 options for the poll. We'll see. And then the last one, knowledge is power. The more you know, the better things will go. And so it's all about the importance of having training. So with that, with those explanations, because I had a character count limit in the polls, I'm going to go ahead and launch the polls now so that you can vote on which topics you would like to see at Autodesk University. So the polls are open, and I'll give everyone a minute to vote on those. Looks pretty good. We're about 20% now. 36% of you have voted. I'll give it another 60 seconds. All right, about 65% of you have voted. Again, these are the topics that you'll want to see at Autodesk University. So I appreciate those who submitted topics. It's always helpful to find out what you are interested in. 75% of you have voted at this point. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll. It looks like 79% of you voted, and I'll share the results of that. Hopefully that's coming up. It looks like 36% of you would like the knowledge is power, all about the importance of training, and then organized chaos, and finally living up to a certain standard. So that is the order that we will have the talks go at AU, and I will get back to those who submitted the topics. So thank you everyone for participating in that. All right, let me go ahead and hide the poll and bringing it back here. I'm not going to go through this. These are just all of our different meetups that you have a chance to go to. And I think the only other one that you guys might be interested in would be the BIM management one that happens the first Tuesday of every month, which we joined with them last time to make up a topic. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John. So John, I'm going to make you presenter.
Good
and so
deal.
John and Ben, if you'll go ahead and share your screen and introduce yourselves, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Can you see my screen, Michelle?
I do see your screen, yes.
All right. Well, first off, I felt a lot of pressure when you were doing the countdown there. It was, I was sitting here sweating whenever you were counting it down. I was thinking, man, I'm on here in just a second. So, thank you everyone for having me today. My name's John Sayre, and my teammate Ben Wardell. We are both technical marketing managers here at Autodesk, and we create a lot of technical assets, videos, things of that nature for folks internally and externally. And we do a lot of webinars. You may have heard us online before, so we appreciate having the opportunity to show you what we're going to go through today, being Project Explorer. Ben, I didn't I didn't leave you any time there to introduce yourself. I kind of introduced you on the run there, so I hope that's okay.
No introduction is necessary, so that's
All
fine.
right, all right. I guess I took liberty. Anyway, so let's jump right in and start talking about Project Explorer, because there is quite a bit to it. It's a new way of looking at civil objects inside of Civil 3D. So basically, a good explanation for Project Explorer is that it is, and by the way, I want to go ahead and call it out as its official title. It's called Autodesk Project Explorer for Civil 3D. So it is an environment that allows you to analyze civil objects in the model, okay? Meaning I can look at a corridor, I can look at the properties of a pipe network. I can do all of that inside of one modeless dialog box, all right? I'm gonna go ahead and launch Project Explorer and just walk you through that real quick. So when you install Project Explorer, it will come in under add-ins here in the ribbon, and you can just select Launch Project Explorer. I'm gonna go ahead and minimize this. I think that's probably going over my screen there. So this is what Project Explorer looks like. Now, again, this is a modeless dialog, right? So you can move this to another screen, all right? And it made it a little bit different to create videos on this, because we had to show what was going on, and we still wanted you to be able to see what was going on in the background inside of the model, but we needed to have it big enough to where you could actually read things. If I was to use this in an everyday scenario, meaning like I'm going to show you here in a little bit, building a retaining wall from feature lines and things of that nature, I would probably move this over to another screen, and I could drive everything in my model from this one dialog. All right. So as you can see, I can move it over, just kind of get it out of the way here, and I am on one monitor. So if I moved it to another screen, you wouldn't be able to see it, so that wouldn't do any good. All right, so if you take a look at my model here, this is a land development project. It's just a subdivision. There's a lot going on inside of it. When we open up Project Explorer, you can see here at the top that you have all the different civil entities that you can modify. All right, so you can look at alignments, you can look at assemblies, you can look at the corridors in the model. Doesn't matter how many corridors you have. You could have 1 or 100. You can look at points, surfaces, feature lines. We will get into that here in a little bit. Parcels, pipe networks, alignments, and profiles. You can also look at blocks and things of that nature inside, what kind of blocks you have inside of your civil model. And then here at the end, this is our reporting functionality. Now, Project Explorer has a very robust reporting functionality, all right? And a couple of the big things it does, we're able to build AutoCAD tables that dynamically update. Now, I'm going to show you that definitely here today. And we can also create reports that we can update very, very quickly. All right, so we are definitely going to show that too. Before I start, we do have 5 videos that have just gotten posted to YouTube on the ADSK infrastructure site or YouTube channel. So you can check those out. Those did get uploaded yesterday, and they will take you through most of what we're going to show today. We're just going to get in a little bit deeper, and you're going to get to see it live. All right. So, but do definitely take a look at those videos. I hope that they help you. They were actually done by Ben and myself. So you'll be hearing the same voices talk to you. All right. So inside of this modeless dialog, we can set this up to look any way we want, okay? And I'm gonna briefly show you that. So down here at the bottom, we have what's called preferences, all right? If I select preferences, I can change the color of things, all right? So if I look at my pipe networks, I can change the background color, the primary part color, the secondary part color, so on and so forth. I can change vertical exaggeration. I can change my grid level, all right? What does that mean, my grid level? If I look at this, I select this pipe network, this is my grid that it's talking about. Okay, so I can change that on the fly. All right, so I can change this to a 2. All right, and hit OK, and it changes my grid. All right, same thing, you know, kind of what you would think preferences would do. This is where you would change all of that type of stuff, like especially the vertical exaggeration. Very handy to be able to change that right here on the fly. All right, and again, I can do this on any of these objects or any of these civil entities inside of Project Explorer. Now you can also change what's called the layout. All right, so this layout is uh, basically how you're seeing it right here. So I can, before I do that, I can actually grab this dialog and pull it down. I can adjust all of this out if I want to see more. All right, or I can select layout if I have things in this area right here. I'll move this over in this grid area right here, or the layout view that I want to see. Then I can change to say structures, and I can pick and choose what I want to see. All right, here in this view, very handy. You can also see here, there's not just one thing that we can look at, right? So if I hit the down arrow, when I'm laying out for pipe networks, if I want to see my pipe networks, I can change the layout for it, for just my structures, for my pipes and my pipe runs. And you can see, if I select structures here, you can see all of the different data that I can see. Basically, if I was to select a pipe or a structure inside of Civil 3D, and then again, right click and look at the properties, you're gonna see all of those properties right here, okay? Which is very, very handy. And again, remember throughout this presentation that everything that you're seeing, we're accessing and looking at through one dialog, all right? I'm not going over to Prospector or Tool Space, grabbing Prospector, looking at properties of something. I'm not selecting something, right clicking and looking at it. Or looking at the properties or changing the style or anything like that. I'm doing it right here in Project Explorer, all right? So we can change the layout of what we're looking at here in our grid view. And then of course we can, if we hit reset, then it resets it back to the default settings. So let's jump right in and start talking about how we can use Project Explorer with different entities. So I'm going to talk today about pipe networks and feature lines, and then I'm going to hand it over to my partner in crime, Ben Wardell, and he's going to talk you through alignments and what you can kind of do with that. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to sprinkle reporting and tables in as we go. So just to kind of walk through and get you oriented with how we can work with pipe networks, if I was to generate a new pipe network, most generally, you know, I would go to the home tab of the ribbon, I would go to pipe network, I would create a pipe network. If I have Project Explorer open, I can access those same commands right here in Project Explorer. So I can select pipe network creation tools, and my dialog boxes that come up basically look, they're the exact same dialog. It's driving Civil 3D from this one dialog. So I can create a network, give it a surface name, alignment, so on and so forth, and then place that network inside of my model wherever I want, all right? Now, once that is in there, I've got a couple of networks in here. If I select my sewer network, all right, and I look here at like D1, all right, I'm gonna scroll back. You can see right there that it highlights in my grid view, and I can see it in profile. If I'm to pick in the plan view, all right, I gotta find my control button. I probably need to zoom in just a little bit. Zoom in there, D1. Yeah. Anyway, I can hop down through. Sorry, I was looking at something else. I can hop through here in my grid view, and where I'm actually selecting here in my grid, I'm seeing in my profile the structure that it's modifying. Okay, which is great. It keeps you kind of grounded as to what you're working on, and keeps you oriented directly inside of the model also, and still driving it here inside of Project Explorer. So we can actually edit the pipe run. We've got some different editing capability. All right, so if I select edit pipe run, you can see here, I can, the main thing that I want to kind of point out here is that you can actually adjust this entire profile per a specific slope. And you can tell it you want to start that slope either at the start, the pipe run start, or the pipe run end. So a lot of times when you're generating a sanitary sewer line, maybe you have cover problems, or you want to see how far you can actually build the sewer line without you know, maybe, or well, how far out you can go before you hit a manhole that you don't have enough depth, right? In places with a lot of elevation that's just flat, it's nice to be able to start a long pipe run and say, I want to see everything at whatever the minimum grade is, like maybe 0.4% on an 8-inch pipe. Then I start it at the pipe run start, and I tell it I want to go at, say, 0.4, and I'd hit OK, and it would run my pipe slope. Now, it would generate a bunch of long pipes here, so I'm not going to do that. But you could, here inside of the edit run, or the edit pipe run dialog, you can also change the pipe run elevation change throughout the entire pipe run. You do have control of whether you can do this by crown, centerline, and invert. There's just a lot of control here, but that main function right there, that being able to change that pipe slope is a pretty big deal. Now, if I want to change it for a specific set of structures, then I can just select my structures here, right click, and I've got all of this right click functionality down here, but I could actually go back up and hit edit the pipe run and just edit that particular distance. See, it's right now it's going from A1 to D8. All right. So if I wanted to change that and just change the slope on a specific set of, I said inlets a minute ago, I meant manholes, then I could change what I'm looking at here. So I could go from like D3 to say D6. Okay. Then I could change the slope from just that set of manholes, which is very, very nice. All right. That kind of moves on to, I can view here in my grid view whatever set of manholes that I want. All right, so again, I can change this back to say my A1 manhole and then go to D8, and that gives me my entire run for my pipes and my manholes. I also have this handy dandy compare to button. All right, so right now I'm seeing what would be my surface that's connecting to the top of my manholes. Now, if I want to see how that's compared to my existing ground, I can tell it to compare to the existing ground, and I can see this green line. That green line is my existing ground. So some of these manholes are looking at the existing ground for rim elevation, and some of them are looking at a proposed grade for elevation. Okay, so I can see what that distance is and compare them right now. We're going to use the compare tool here in just a little bit with the feature lines also. So I can, a great visualization tool, being able to check things and then actually being able to modify them. All right, so just real quick, and the last thing I'll show before I jump into feature lines, I want to make sure I leave Ben some time here, is if I want to mass change something, and reference surface, that is one thing that we can mass change. All right, I can simply grab the inlets here in my structures tab, or I keep saying inlets, I meant manholes. And I say I want to grab D1, 2, and 3. I can right click and I can set that reference surface right here. All right, and I can do it all in this one dialog. So it's set to EG now. I could set that to whatever. I could say proposed roads, and it would reset the elevations here, the rim elevations. I could go back and do the same thing again, back to EG, and it resets those elevations again to the EG. All right. Again, if I right click, you can set the reference alignments. If you've built pipe networks in Civil 3D, you have to get a couple dialog boxes in for it to be able to mass select things. You can see it very clearly here, what you're working with. And it's easy to select what you want here to change globally. If I scroll to the right, I can also see if I have a compare. I don't have my compare surface added to this one. I'll show you that whenever I get to feature lines. So great way to work with and edit pipe networks. You've also got, and I'll go ahead and show you a quick report or a table. All right, so I'll go back to my pipe networks and say I want a table of my structures. So I can add my structure list for this particular network. So I'll say I want to build a new object, and I'll just call it sewer structures. All right. And I will say that I wanted to build a table. So I wanted to build a table in model space. I can do it model space or paper space. I want it to be dynamic, all right? And I can create a specific layout if I want. So I can edit the style that it's going to show. And again, this is like editing the different properties that you're going to see. You want to be sure that you select what you're working with. I've caught myself doing that several times. And I'm like, where is my information I want? Well, make sure you pick the right tab. And then I've got all the same information that I had whenever I selected this layout tab here at the bottom. So this is what I'm going to see for my structure. So I could actually pick this, turn these things on and off, whatever, or I can just browse out and select one for, say, this is going to be sewer pipes. So let's do this. Let's go to my pipes and we'll do a pipe instead. So sewer pipes. All right, same thing. We're going to build a table and model, be dynamic, and we're going to use a specific layout style template that we've saved. All right. And so it's just going to show what I want it to show. I'm going to go ahead and select here. I'm going to pick my insertion point. I'll scroll back and I'll pick right there in my model and just hit OK. And it generates my table. All right. So you can see the different information. Now, I said that was the last thing I was going to show you, and I want you to see the dynamic functionality. If I select these pipes globally, and I right click and I say I want to swap parts, okay? This is a pretty big deal. I want to go to 8-inch instead of 10. I hit OK, and it swaps them, and notice that my table updated. It is dynamic. So inside of Project Explorer, I can grab multiple parts and swap parts at one time. All right? So that's what I wanted to show you with pipe networks. Let me jump in and I'm going to design this retaining wall real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ben. Ben, I promise I'll leave you some time. All right, so this particular instance, they wanted to have a leveled out yard, and this actually is there. It kind of looks a little bit different in the field, but this is a real world scenario. So if I look here, I can switch over to my feature lines, and notice I don't have any. So I can create one. All right, so we're going to create the bottom of wall on this particular retaining wall first. So I'm just going to hit my down arrow here, and I've got all my features that I have up in my tool space. I can create a feature line from objects just like I can in my pull downs. I'm going to select that line right there. That's the bottom of the wall. All right, your dialog will come up. This will be familiar. All right, and I'm going to tell it I want to assign elevations to my existing ground. Okay, so I'm just going to say EG, and voila, it builds my existing ground. Now, where can we, or how do we start working with or trying to figure out what the top of wall needs to be? Well, I can start off by looking at the bottom of the wall, right? This follows my existing ground, and I can compare that to the corridor here on my cul-de-sac. All right, so say I want to see that according to my finished grade on my cul-de-sac. There's my cul-de-sac right here. So obviously when I build this top wall, I want to be able to kind of match that, you know, get it close. So elevation wise, now, I mean, I can get it exact. We're going to get it close today. So in order to show the top of wall, I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to create another feature line, maybe from objects. And I'll zoom in and select the top of wall. All right. Now, again, I'm going to assign the elevations, but I'm just going to give it an elevation that I think is really close to where I need to be. All right, so I'll just hit OK, and I'm going to give it an elevation of just say 10, 11. All right, and hit OK. Generates another feature line. That's that blue line right there, and it goes all the way around. Well, obviously, I don't want it to be that high, right? Because that's going to give me a very high wall, and I want the water to slope off this way. Right, so first thing I'll show you, I need to know which one of these feature lines are which. So when I select them individually, I can see what they are. But if I want to change the name, all right, I can go to the feature line properties, and I could give it a name, or I can actually just double click in that area, that box, and I can say this is the bottom of wall. All right. And I can do the same thing here for the top of wall and call this top of wall. Now I can easily figure out where I'm at and which feature line I'm working with. So we're going to look at the top of the wall, And you can see it's still being compared to my surface, all right? So this is my surface, so I could actually drop that down just a little bit, all right? So I could grab all these vertexes, right? And I could set things to a constant elevation. So let's just do that. I'll set this to say 1010. That's where we will start today. And you can see that I'm down below, so that looks pretty good. It's down below my finished grade here, we're right at it. So now I need to start sloping around. So if I select a point here in my feature line where it says feature line points, if I hit my control button, it shows me visually where I'm at and the distance. So I can continue to select vertexes and it gives me those distances. Now I can just keep selecting one, pick another one. I'm not only seeing the distance and where I'm at, but I'm also seeing it here in my grid view, all right? This is huge for building things or building feature lines and grading to know exactly where you're at, okay? So this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna start here at point 1, all right, or vertex 1, and I'm gonna come around this to this particular spot, and I wanna come down at 2%, okay? So I've got those selected. I'm gonna right click and tell it I wanna use a constant grade between feature lines. So I'm just gonna say -2, and I'll hit okay, and it sets my elevations for me, all right? You can see that right here. Now I'm at this point here. Now, where is that? Two things I want you to look at. Number one, look at the plan view. If I hit my control, I'm standing right here, okay? Look where I'm at in grid view. This is a little bit of a problem. I probably want this to be flat across here. So I can see that this was set at 1004.97, okay, if it's rounded. Let's make that easy, all right? 1005. Now I'm at an even elevation. I can click here, which is actually there, all right? And I can set the same elevation. Just double click, all right? And now I'm flat, all right? So I come down, I've got a flat area going around this, right? So if I was to look in my model, I can see that right there. Now, from this point, I wanna go back up and tie back to this elevation. So how would I do that? I would start here, all right? And I would say I wanna move up, and we're just gonna do this arbitrary, all right? I'll go from this point here around and see what happens when I go up at 2%, all right? So I'll just set a constant grade and just say that's 2% and hit okay. And we'll see how close we got. Well, this particular point right here at the beginning, we needed that to be a little higher. You can see that here. So I could go back and reset this at 1010. And I got a little bit different slope, right? 6%. So to get to that point again, I could start back at the bottom and say, instead of 2%, I want to go up at say 3%. All right. That gets me to where my last grade is a little bit flatter. Okay. And again, I'm just showing you how this functionality works. This is not an exact design, but you can see how quickly you can iterate back and forth inside here inside of Project Explorer. Now, I have my vertical set on both top and bottom wall. I can actually, if I want to compare, I'm actually looking at the top of wall here. If I want to compare that to my existing ground, you know, that's going to really represent my bottom of wall. So I can see I've got a pretty tall wall down here, but that allows me to compare that very, very quickly. It also allows me to see the compared surface that I'm looking at here and the compared elevation, all right, at each individual point, okay? So that's very, very handy also. So I can look at the compared elevation. Let's just select this one here, 992.28, that's the ground. And I can go back to my proposed, it's at 1005. So you can see the difference in vertical exaggeration or vertical wall. Last thing, all right, so I wanna see a surface of this. So I can go directly to my surfaces here in Project Explorer, and I can create a surface called, we'll just say wall, all right? And just simply zoom in and select those two feature lines and add to that surface as a break line. And there's my surface for my ground. Okay, and I could go back in and mold this back into this other surface. Lots more that we could do, but I left Ben about 10 minutes here and I'm going to go ahead and transfer to him. Now, I will say this one last thing. We could go back to our feature line, and surveyors like to have a stakeout sheet sometimes. So this top of wall, I could create a new object set that's called top of wall. And I want to create just an HTML file, or you could create a text file or a CSV, a report of some sort. So I'm going to create an HTML file, and I'm just going to use the defaults for this particular one. And I'll hit OK. All right. Now, once that's done, I can go to my object sets here, and I can select this object set, right? The top of all object set, and tell it I want to run the selected action. And it will open up and give you basically a staking report of that particular top of wall. Okay. Surveyors ask for this all the time. And sometimes you need to give it to them in report form. Sometimes this is a deliverable, but this is just the tip of the iceberg as to what we can do with reports. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ben Wardell and let him talk to you about alignments and profiles real quick. So Ben, you should be able to change to you.
Yep. Can you see my screen okay?
I sure can. Take it away.
Okay, very good. Okay. So what we've got here is, and I'll jump in kind of where John left off. So, and I'm going to actually minimize that as well. Okay. So move this out of the way. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So when it comes to with the alignments and the profile, so a couple of things that I want to add on to what John talked about here. One thing that's really nice is that Project Explorer will do some of the similar functions that we can do with Civil 3D. For instance, if I wanted to create an alignment, and I use that right here, I can say, you know, go to my alignment creations tools, and it'll come up just as it does when we're executing it within Civil 3D. So if I say okay here, you'll see that my toolbar comes up for that information. And so in this case, if I wanted to create an alignment for this road down here, I could do that. And I'll just do that using PIs. So I'm going to select a handful of points here, from there to there to there, and I'll just hit enter. And I could, if I wanted to, add, you know, the curvature and all the profile information as well. But as soon as that information is available, you'll see that I can see that now in here, and I've got some of the information that's available, either the calculated stations, and we can tab through this information here. And this is really what you're going to see when you create some of the reports. This is some of that information. And just like John showed before, there's a couple things I can do with that. If I go to station 100, I can right click on that and say zoom to that point. And if I move this out of the way, you'll see it took me right to station 100. Or just like John showed before, if I hit control, you can see some of these points that are selected. And then I'll do that right here. You know, kind of select these points, and I can see exactly in my plan view as well as in my preview screen with Project Explorer where that information is found. So I'll escape out of that. Also, if I need to get rid of this particular alignment, I can do that as well. And I'll just hit delete, and then it's gone. So you've got a lot of functionality within Project Explorer to still create and do the same things that you do with Civil 3D. It's just in one convenient location. One thing I also wanted to add on, anytime you see, when we set up as default, when we set up the default information, anything you see in this magenta color is something that can be revised. So if I wanted to change the description here of one of my roads, let's go to Appleseed Lane. And if I wanted to change the description of this, I can add that information in here. Called Appleseed Lane proposed right there. That information will update. So anytime you see that field in that particular color, again, under the default settings, because just like John showed, we could go in and under the layout and the preferences and change how that stuff is displayed. But when it, by default, anything that you see in those colors, that's information that you can revise. So the information that's shown up in black, that's set, that's going to be more or less, Project Explorer is not going to be able to make revisions to that. When it comes to viewing alignments and profiles, again, we can look at these things in a couple different ways. We can look at it in a calculated view. And if I wanted to change this interval, you know, I could change that to every 10 feet. And if I want around when I'm on a curve or a spiral, I want to go every 5 feet. Now, when I'm looking at this information, and again, just like this was shown before, if I pan down through this, You can see my marker location in my preview screen, just like you can see here. And again, if I need to go to this and see, okay, where am I on this, I can just zoom to that point, zoom out just a little bit, and I can see that I'm on this alignment right here. So it's a good way to kind of keep your bearings. So when you're working on something and you're working on the alignments, if you feel like you're getting lost or something like that, you want to verify where you are, that's a handy feature just to right click and give you that information as well. And that works with the pipe networks, the feature lines, anything that we've got, any of the objects that we've got that are being referenced in Project Explorer. We can also take a look at, and this is something that's kind of cool as well, the different profiles. So if I select the profile itself, again, I can see this information, I can pan down through this, and the marker up here will show me where I am. Again, if I want to show that on my, highlight those information there, I can see those, well, can't see them very well, but those little red dots, those markers show up exactly where those are. And again, that's in the preferences if we wanted to change that. Now, if we want to change the way that we're looking at this from either calculated stations or by entities, alignments, or excuse me, tangents and curves, or if we want to do that by our PI locations, we can look through all that information. And again, this is the information that's going to be reported on when we create our reports. So if I look through this and then just pan through this, it'll show me what I'm looking at, either parabola or a tangent, or I can do that by the PVIs as well. So all this information, it's going to give me my northing easting elevation points and a lot of this, some of my other geometry that's associated with it. So some really good information that's available. It is a little bit limited as far as our ability to make revisions to it at this point, but that is something that's coming. Again, the safe harbor statement there as far as stuff that's coming. But right now it's very, very good as far as taking a look at what we've got, making some additions, things like that. One thing I do want to point out here, and we'll get into the reports just a little bit, where it really, really does excel is in the assembly layout view. So what we're able to do is we can see in the top portion of our screen, we can see all the assemblies that we have on this particular project. And we get a preview of what those look like. Not only do we get a preview of our assemblies, but we also can see where they are being used and some of their values. So in this case, we can see what associated regions or corridors that they are using. So in our corridor that we have, and we have a number of baselines that are in this particular corridor for these roads in this subdivision, we can see anywhere that that this assembly is being used in that particular our corridor. And then we can see and highlight on this side anything on the left side, and then the same thing with the right side. We can look at our lane configuration, our curb and gutter, as well as our slope to our existing ground. And again, as I pointed out before, anywhere we've got these magenta these magenta colors, those are values that we can edit. So if I look at this right here and say, you know what, we've got this set at 14 feet. I actually need to make this value, let's make it something we can actually see the difference on. I want to make that 18 feet. And now we can see that we can see the length of our lane update right there. And then we can change it back just as easily if we want to. I just double click on that and we say, okay. So when it comes to assemblies, it is really convenient because it puts everything right in front of you. The values for each, all the parameter values for each subassembly, the location of each subassembly, and every subassembly that we've got access to, as well as all the different parts that are associated. So let's take a look a little bit here at the corridors as well. And again, let me back up here. When it comes to, we can create an assembly as well. Up in this upper left corner, that's all the values that are available, or all the functions and commands that are available to us that, again, they just mimic what we can do with Civil 3D. Now, in our corridor itself, we can actually create a new corridor. We do it the same way we've done in previous, laying out an alignment. And we can also rebuild the corridors that are out of date. And so in this case, this says that my corridor is out of date. So I can either choose that right there, or I can just right click here and I can actually set to rebuild the corridor there. And that information will process any kind of updates I've made to the assemblies, that's all set up right there as well. This shows me a breakdown for all the different baselines, and within the baselines, it shows me the different regions that are set up as well, as well as the feature lines. And we can do the same thing with the feature lines as we did with the alignments. If I right click, I can zoom to see where that particular feature line is located. And I can kind of hover over that and it'll tell me what I'm looking at. In this case, I'm looking at some of the daylight feature lines that are associated with this corridor. One other thing that I like on this particular the views is we can pan through our station, or we can look through our cross sections very easily, and they're gonna reflect the cross sections the way that they were cut or the way that they were created in our corridor. So when I do that, again, just like we showed before with the compare feature, if I want to compare that and see what that looks like with existing ground, I can do that. And now I can see that green line show up that indicates where my existing ground is. If I want to change my exaggeration, John showed previously, you can do that in the preferences, or we've got some of these preview screens, and let me select my corridor again. We've got some of these preferences to where I can change that. If I want that to a 5-to-1 ratio to really exaggerate the features of my corridor, I can see that in here, or we can turn our grid off and on. There's a couple different toggles in here when it comes to displaying and viewing the information that's available to us. So some kind of some tricks that do some of the same thing, but a couple different ways that we can go about getting some of that information. So when it comes to corridors, alignments, profiles, assemblies, and corridors, it really is, you'll really notice the big difference, especially when it comes from an efficiency for your workflows. You're really going to notice a difference when it comes to the assemblies. There's a lot of powerful features and a lot of really good things that it shows us when it comes to the corridors, and we can do anything that we can do, with just with the prospector. But again, it really in one convenient location. Before we wrap up and turn it over to questions, I am going to go over a couple of different areas of the reporting feature as well. John did touch on some of these as well, and I'm going to touch on just a couple other things on this as well. One thing I do want to show, and I will zoom out here, I have created some tables, just like John did, with the pipes and the pipe networks, and I've created these and I've set these as dynamic tables as well. Now these tables, initially when somebody gets into Project Explorer and starts creating all of these these types, I've set up my reporting feature and I'll show you some of these different styles. I've toggled on or off the elements that I want to display in my particular report. But if something is out of order, if we're working with a client or a customer that has a particular style, and they want, for instance, property sets to be shown up here, we can reorder a lot of this information. We can turn it on or off, and we can also, we can set these up and then save this format so that everything is shown and saved just the way that John showed previously, that is going to be set to the standards that we need. I'm going to cancel out of that because there's nothing that I have there. I'm not going to save it. Actually, hold on. We're going to get out of that and then cancel that. And so what I've done here is I've set up a number of dynamic tables. And so if I want to add any additional information, right now I'm showing a couple of alignments and one profile. If I want to add any information to this, I just select this green plus button, and from my list, I can choose any other features here, including other objects. So right here, I'm showing all the alignments. I can also show the different assemblies if I want to do some reports on that, the corridors, the pipe networks that John was talking about, or anything else that's available to me right here. I'm going to leave this as is, but all I'd have to do is toggle these on or off, and that information, in fact, I'll turn on, let's do Appleseed Circle. And then we can see that now that's available. Appleseed Circle is now available. Now, by default, and this is one thing I just want to say, it's not necessarily a gotcha, but just something to keep in mind. I have created that, and now you can see an additional table was created down here for Appleseed Circle. So this is a dynamic table. Now, one thing to keep in mind, somebody may look at this and say, well, listen, I don't want to show, every 20 feet or 50 feet or 10 meters or whatever, whatever we're working in. I want to actually just show my PVI information. You just double click where it says calculated station. And in fact, let me change my view so you can see this update. So for Appleseed Circle here, I am showing just every 20 feet in the alignment. But if I double click on where it says the sub-object type and I change that from the calculated station to the alignment PVIs, then I can change that, and that updates as well. So this is the kind of information that's really handy to us when we're setting up these tables or making any changes. Keep in mind that when we run reports as well, so I'll show something up here. I've done a compare element report, and if I do this by calculated station, that's fine there, but I'm actually comparing it to other alignments. So in this case, I'm comparing Apple Street to Apple Core Road. Those are just the names of the alignments within this corridor. Or I'm looking at the profile for Apple Street finish grade, and I'm comparing that to Apple Core finish grade. When I run that report, and in this case, I've not set this up with tables, this is with reports. So if I say run selected action, what we'll see is this little dialog will pop up, and then I've got this set up as a text diagram or as a text file to where I can pan over and look at the comparison. So it's showing my offset value. And so we can see right here, 290 feet offset right there. So we see that we're parallel. Then we get into an area where we're not parallel anymore. But then we can go down and check out our profile as well and compare that to our elevation difference. We can see our elevation, and we can see the offset Z value to see how much higher or lower we are. This is really handy when we're working with a lot of alignments. Sometimes we may work with something like a rail alignment, and we may be in a yard to where we need to compare the different profile elevations with each other. This is really where this is something that's very handy, that we can make those comparisons. So a lot of different values and a lot of different things that are available with a lot of different report styles that are available here. And again, it just kind of depends. So in any time you get into this and you're like, wait a second, I'm not sure, I didn't want to show calculated stations because this is one of the questions that I had. I want to show this by, PVIs or entities. You just set that in the sub-object type. And so whatever this is set to, that's what it's going to give me a preview down here. And that's also what's going to be returned in the report style as well. So I'll set this to entities. You can see this information changes below as well. And it still is giving me a comparison as well. So with that, that is most of the information that I had to share. I am going to turn it back over to you. And
okay. Well, we do have a few questions. There are some that were repeated multiple times, so I'm going to repeat those just so that everyone has the answer. Specifically, will Project Explorer also be available for Civil 3D 2020? So Ben, would you like to answer that one?
Sure, and that's going to be one of the more common questions. A lot of times when we do any of these kind of what's new demos, some of the questions that people will have are going to be, I'm using 2018, can I use it on that? 2019, 2020. Currently, it is available for 2021.1. And it is available if you have access, if your company has access to the AEC collection. So individual licenses or individual Civil 3D standalone. It actually doesn't come with that. It comes with the AEC collection. And so right now it's just available 2021.1. If that changes and becomes backward compatible, then that's something we'll let people know of. But for now, it is available with the newer version. So.
Hey, Ben, could I step in here real quick?
You bet, please. Actually,
I confirmed with, there's a Slack channel here internally, and Tim has confirmed it installs in 2020 and 2021.
Oh, great. Okay, that's good news. Okay, excellent.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Sean. So the next question, actually, Chris Stevens had quite a few questions. One of them that was left unanswered. It would be great if Autodesk supplied Project Explorer versions of the existing reports and tables. It appears that these will become legacy tools with minimal support. Do you have anything to add to that for Chris? And maybe I'll even open Chris's line since he did have several questions.
So as far as creating, making this a legacy tool, is that the reference? I know that they have a lot of different plans on the development side. Specifics, I'm not sure, and Sean, maybe you've heard a little bit more on this as well, but I know that this is really something, Project Explorer really does answer a lot of the questions, not all the questions and not all the issues that customers were having, but it does answer a lot of the questions that they're having in regards to reporting features and reporting capabilities. I know that they have plans to expand on this as well on the development side to make its capabilities even more robust. So yes, it does have that potential, but I'm not certain of the exact plan at this point.
Okay.
I
And
think they're still
Christy,
working some of the roadmap out, Ben. So yeah, I don't have anything to add to that.
Right.
and Chris Stevens, I've unmuted your line, but you're still self-muted. Would you like to add anything or ask other questions? Because I know you did have several in the Q&A panel.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think you've answered it. It just seems to me, I see this as a great product, and I'm a little concerned that us users tend to ignore first releases, and this really isn't a true first release. So I think it does seem to overlap a lot of the existing processes, reports, tables. And my experience is Civil 3D gives you a ton of ways to do things. And in the back of my mind, having used it for years and years, I always wonder, am I using the best way? And I see a lack of guidance from Autodesk on that. And I think Project Explorer is a big enough deal that it's going to be truly the preferred ways for a lot of things. That's why I don't want to have to update old legacy style tables when I can learn how to do it in Project Explorer.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I think that is the plan. Talking with the development team, and Sean mentioned Tim on the development side. He's been a big factor on this. And keep in mind, Project Explorer has been available as an add-on in previous versions, and so but they really plan on taking this and running with it, and like I said, making it much more capable. But yeah, that's their hope as well. That's the hope on the development side, on the Autodesk side, is that this really can be the solution for a lot of these ailments that a lot of customers are having, and just to make your design flows a lot more efficient, and just cleaning up the processes in a lot of ways. So that is the hope. That will be. But again, that's kind of forward looking on roadmap stuff. So.
All right, thanks, Chris, for being willing to speak aloud. So the next question is coming in from Kieran, and he says, I am a longtime user of Project Explorer. I would like to see the option to export object set configurations and then import into a new drawing, which may not have object sets. Do you have anything in response to that?
John, do you want to take that one? That's one we didn't cover, but that is a really cool feature that John shows in a couple of his videos in the overview video of it being able to export. But do you want to talk a little bit about that, exporting those 2D features, John?
I don't know that that's the question, though, is it? Can you read the question again, Michelle? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So it says, I would like to see the option to export object set configurations and then import them into a new drawing, which may not have object sets.
Right, so they're wanting to actually export just what object sets were created in one project or one drawing, and then import that into another. So I don't know, and somebody can correct me here. I know that you can't do that today. What I showed was building and saving out templates for your reports and things of that nature. And what Ben was talking about was actually being able to export any of the civil entities to a 2D drawing, which is that's something that we all get asked to do all the time. Instead of using the export civil 3D drawing, you can actually export the entities, and it becomes a drawing that's 2D. It strips everything off. It's very quick, very efficient. I think that's what Ben was talking about. But I'm sure that in the future that'll be something that can be added, and I'm glad that you brought that up because we can take that back to development. Again, this is like Ben said, this is the first version under Autodesk, so there's a lot of plans and a big roadmap for this getting updated and adding more functionality. They're already
Right.
talking about updating things for feature lines, a lot more functionality for that, even though we have a ton of functionality for it. So it's just going to get better and better. But that is one thing that I will take back to development.
Well, and that's one thing that, John, I know that they talked about as well, is having specific industry style layouts or reports that are very common for instance, for roadway design. If someone needs to do a clearing report or a staking report, or when it comes to rail track alignment geometry, there are some specific formats they've talked about. That's something that, again, futures, and thank you, Michelle, for presenting that, because that's kind of forward looking, but that is something I know that the development team has in mind to set those templates up and that are very unique and specific to many customers' needs when it comes to styles of reports. But right now, I guess just like John showed, the best way is to set those up, but then use those. John imported that, or opened that object set file, that report style file from something he had set up previously. That's kind of the method that, or the way it works right now. But again, that feature is going to just get better and better, especially with customer feedback and input on things that they need.
Great. And it looks like we are just over time. So I'm going to post the forum in the chat panel again. I posted it earlier, but let's continue the conversation in the forum. And I want to thank everyone for joining today, especially those who helped out. So John and Ben and Sean and Adam Riley, they were all helping out in the background and as well as presenting. So thank you for your time. And I appreciate everyone, and we will see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.